Hey all, here at OS Reviews, you're watching our hands-on review of the mobile phone telescope. This is a 10 times optical telescope that you can attach onto the lens of your smartphone. It also includes this mini tripod holder for you to capture zoomed-in images as well as stills, both in arenas for sports or for, let's say, landscapes and nature shots. It's priced at around $15, which is a fair price, I'd say, for a mobile lens kit for your smartphone. Now, this basically does the opposite of many lenses that we've seen in the past, which get very up close to objects, and that allows you to use it kind of like a microscope to really zoom into smaller objects and discover details that you can't see with the naked eye. This does, again, the reverse by allowing you to zoom into further objects like binoculars, which could be, again, a very cool accessory if you are into mobile or smartphone photography. Obviously, it's still not going to give you DSLR or really dedicated, expensive point-and-shoot quality, but it gets fairly close these days with a lot of smartphones getting better and better cameras, and it could be a worthwhile investment to consider picking up if you want to experiment a bit more with smartphone photography. So in the box here, we have that mounting kit for your phone, which is actually a nice little bonus. It includes this really small tripod that's made out of metal. It's not the best quality in the world, but it does have rubber feet that prevents it from sliding around. And then you have a standard tripod tip on the top. What you do is you screw it onto this little bracket holder, and this is a universal mount that you can pull to fit in phones up to 5.5 inches, such as the iPhone Plus, and that will hold it into place in a more stable position as you are zooming in. Because you are really zoomed in, up to 10 times optically, you have to stay very still for most cameras and for most phones, because even with optical image stabilization, if you slightly shake it, it will disturb the image. So that is one downside of this kit, but as long as you have a bit of patience, if you're doing a time-lapse footage, it would work actually quite well. This is a clip which you would clip onto the back of your phone. It has some foam padding to prevent it from getting damaged, and that's where you would also screw in the lens kit like this so that the entire thing stays in place without falling out. The lens itself is made out of plastic, so it's not made out of aluminum, unlike some previous kits we've seen. So the quality is average, I would say. You do have access to the adjustments here where you can physically change this knob to twist the focus to zoom in and zoom out a little bit. This is what it looks like fully assembled and attached onto a smartphone. So one potential downside is, depending on where the camera is located on your phone, the clip might partially obtrude on the display. So it could possibly, if your camera is further in the center of the device, the clip might block a portion of the screen, and that might interfere, let's say, with several controls, maybe with the touch responsiveness. So that's something to quickly point out and consider. However, for the majority of smartphones, especially ones with a camera mounted on the side, it actually does a pretty good job of staying in place, especially with this rubber feet on the tripod mount. It holds the weight of the phone without any problems. It still focuses actually very well, and you can always use the knob here to slightly change and twist it. Something I would say, though, is that you have to be kind of careful, because you can turn the knob, but oftentimes that will also kind of turn the position on the clip, since it's not held in place super firmly, and you kind of have to play around with the position because it's not going to be perfect right out of the box. That, I would say, is the process that takes the most time, just to focus the lens and make sure that the lens is actually right in front of the camera so that you can actually see everything that's going on. So the part where you kind of adjust the focus as well as position it is the part that takes, again, a moment or two to get used to. And afterwards, you get a decent image, I would say. So here's the video that I recorded, and you can see that because it doesn't have the phone doesn't have super strong optical image stabilization, you do have to be very careful and deliberate in your movements. But afterwards, surprisingly, even with this lens attached, which makes this circular shape, especially if you have a wide-angle lens on your phone, then it still remains in focus actually surprisingly well. And there's a slight amount of fuzziness towards the outer rings, but the image itself is actually captured really well. It looks like a very cool effect. And of course, you can also not record video. You can just use it as a viewfinder to explore things and to see action more clearly if you're sitting in the stadium as an audience and you want to look at players on the field. Images will turn out slightly better than videos, as you can see here. So you have a slightly sharper image, but again, you still have the same round fisheye-like shape. So it's not a full box that you would get from your regular camera image. But overall, again, text and everything is surprisingly nicely captured, and you still have overall the same amount of detail as you would get from your regular phone lens. So you still have a good amount of sharpness and pixels to zoom in and crop in with. Some other images that I captured here. Again, you do have to be careful because sometimes the lens will move around as you're trying to adjust the focus, and so that will shift where the circle is, whether it's towards the side or towards the other side or in the middle. So that is the part that is the most sensitive, and you have to get some time to get used to. But overall, the effect is actually a lot better than I expected. With the right situation, with the right amount of patience, you can definitely play around with it and get some pretty cool shots in general with a kit like this. That's more or less it for our hands-on review of the mobile phone telescope, a pretty cool lens accessory for smartphone cameras. Definitely slightly more of a gimmick. I would say the fisheye lens, which is again that smaller, more typical lens that you'll see sold in Best Buy and other electronics stores, and micro lenses are still going to be more practical just because they're smaller and you can use it in a wider range of situations than something like a telescope or an optical zoom lens like this. But given the right circumstances, it can definitely still be a very helpful thing to put onto a smartphone, since smartphone cameras don't have any optical zoom built in at all, so you're very limited, and if you try to zoom in digitally, you lose a lot of the resolution. But the downside is you do have to hold the phone very still, and again, the whole entire clip has to be held in very firmly. You can't really focus or change the adjustments very easily after you put it on there, otherwise the whole thing tends to shift around and you kind of have to play around with the camera again to realign everything. But again, given the right circumstances, for a low amount of money, you can get some very cool looking shots. So thanks for watching this video here at OS Reviews.